rehabilitation in my time and really done a lot of things and done a lot of therapy and counseling and talked to a lot of police officers and just seen a lot of different sides of different things. I think that I can really confidently say that there are a lot of really fantastic police officers, but it's unfortunate because the vast majority of them don't do their job well. Or it's not that they're necessarily angry or mean or violent, but they do it inconsistently, or they're sloppy. And with something like law enforcement, you can't be sloppy. And then it reflects badly on the people of America because, that's where the blame is put. That's where the blame is put, especially in arrest type situations, That's where it manifests. So anyway, I began to get arrested a bunch, and this was all after this really bad accident that I had as well, which was I used to play soccer, like I said, and that was the better of the sports that I took up. I never played football, but I exceeded at soccer far more than I did with baseball. I just understood it more. It was quicker to me. Baseball always lagged. It was sluggish. I would just prefer to, watch a Yankees game or something. And now everyone knows my affiliation. So now, yes, I am a Yankees fan, although I really do not follow sports all that much. But I really do love basketball, and I love college football, just for an aside there. Anyway, I had this one really horrible accident as a goalie where I went down and I had possession of a ball and I went down on one knee. I don't have any recollection of this specific moment, but apparently one of the opposing wings on the other team came down and wanted, had the intention of kicking the ball, but instead missed and kicked out 3 of my teeth. And that resulted in thousands upon thousands of dollars of insurance and dental surgery, as well as braces and visits to the neurologist, and me really kind of being angry at the world and angry at myself, and that resulted in some drug use, which I can definitely get into another time. But anyway, this kind of escalated, and I went to this small drug program which lasted for about 2 days on a weekend, and I wrote this essay, kind of bullshitted my way through it, and then I was able to go through this 1-year correctional period, and it was kind of a step down from probation, what they give minors. It's called a correctional period in the state of New Jersey, and I was able to get through this, and it was supposedly off my record, so I was the talk of the town. All these rumors went around that I drove in a car into the faculty room in my middle school, smoked a blunt, and done all these absurd, lewd things in the middle school, but none of that was true, and I kind of dispelled those rumors. So I went through high school, and definitely my drinking and smoking picked up, and it's really interesting because I feel like when you go into high school, there's this expectation to drink and smoke. It's a lot of people don't even really, I don't even think a lot of kids really want to drink necessarily. I mean, maybe they do. You don't know necessarily, but a lot of kids I don't even think really want to drink or smoke. It's just so inundated in the culture, and it's so inundated in hip-hop and pop culture that you just hear it and you see it, and it just becomes suddenly like, oh, okay, maybe I should do this, maybe I should take this up. And then it's so easy for that to take a priority, and it's so easy for you to not understand what priorities are at that young age, and that's exactly what happened with me. And I began to smoke weed, and I began to have these dilemmas where I'd be sitting at my computer, and I'd be like, oh, well, this homework's not too rigorous, and I can always bang out things last minute. Maybe I can just smoke instead. And that turned into not just with weed and homework, but me with everything. For example, I was only present in my high school for 2.5 years, 2 years and change, 2 years and 1 month. And the 1 month of my junior year that I was there, I had a really bad relationship with my JV soccer coach. He was this Middle Eastern guy. I don't remember what country he hailed from, but he was very elitist. Here comes the small town elitist people cropping up again. There's too many of them all the time. And he basically point blank, verbatim told me that you are not going to play much this season. I don't like your playing style. I think your technique needs to develop more. Whereas last season I'd been starting on JV. The varsity coach, right at tryouts a week before, had told me that I was right at the cusp of making it. I just needed to fine-tune some things, some of my playing, some of my passing ability, some of my handling. And I was just completely distraught over this, and couldn't imagine just being a piece on the bench, being antiquated on the bench, and falling to the wayside and gathering dust. I just couldn't imagine that. I needed to play. That was one of the main reasons. It was for my fitness and for the camaraderie that you experienced. And I wasn't just going to be water boy and sit down and ball boy, whatever my title was going to be on the bench. I could not be idle. That was one thing I hate doing, and I think everybody should become accustomed to that kind of feeling. You should not be idle in your life. And, should is a strong word. You can do whatever, but it's important to just work and to create and to move. But anyway, I digress. I had a very bad relationship with him, and, like I said, I didn't know how to prioritize, and I would, feign my ankle hurting, and I didn't like him. I didn't like practicing, and I would just go into the weight room and work out, and I would skip practice, and he would have no idea, and he would sign off on it. And that even showed his lack of care for not further investigating. Like, why don't you show me, a doctor's note? Why don't you get an x-ray? Why don't we have some more investigation into this? And, given JV's a step down from varsity, but it's like, come on, man, have a little more investment in your team. It seemed like he was just doing it for the paycheck, but, and that's what a lot of coaches do regardless. So wasn't able to develop a relationship with him. But anyway, I got arrested a couple more times. I won't get into too many details. I got arrested a couple more times and ended up having a really, really big episode, spitting in a cop's face, and booked myself a ticket to the psych ward, a little upstate New York in Westchester, this place called Four Winds, for about 5 days, for just a little period to just get off my parents' hands for them to figure out what to do. And they talked to what is called an educational consultant that kind of is kind of disproportionately, in my opinion, paid disproportionately, and is paid a lot to kind of figure out what's going on in the family dynamic, figure out what's going on in the adolescent's life, and kind of make a decision with the parents, kind of put everyone's heads together and see what's best in terms of a treatment plan. And in the world of treatment, a treatment plan can be up to 5 years. It can be 2 years. There's no time frame on it, but it can include a lot of different interventions, and it's just this very comprehensive plan that can help out a person in a lot of ways. It can include medication, include just different types of therapy. Anyway, what was concluded for me when I came back from this little stint at the loony bin, and loony bin is a really politically incorrect term. It's a psych ward. It's a psychological hospital. But just to add some humor on there, and I don't want to offend anyone. But anyway, I came back, and what was decided for me was to go to an inpatient treatment outside of the state. And because I liked and had advocated for myself about going outdoors and going out of the state, because, tensions with my mother and father were, at a boiling point, they decided to put me into this program called Second Nature Uintas. Second Nature has a bunch of programs, a bunch of satellite programs in the West Coast area, and it's a wilderness program where you can go up to 6 months. I was not there for 6 months, but I was there for about 84 days. But you can go for any number of time, and it's a phase-based program where you move up in phases. There's an earth, fire, water, and air phase, and you move up in phases based on the amount of work that you do and the amount of progress that you show. And I was nestled into this little high desert location right under the Uintas Mountains, about 4 hours north of Salt Lake City. And I was told about a week in there that you're not going home, and you are going to a therapeutic boarding school after this. And I spent about 3 days on my own crying, because what they do when you first get out there is they automatically put you on isolation, and you're not allowed to talk to the group or the staff that you're with out in the wilderness program. And you're just kind of there, and you have to reflect, and you get your own food, you get your personal food, and you have to write and kind of reflect and kind of just outline how you're going to be and how you're going to proceed within this program, because there's only so much you're going to do. You're with about 10 people out in this wilderness program, and you hike and you move on, and you learn about yourself, and you harvest sage and you harvest juniper, and you get a top rock. And I still have it here on the shelf to my left next to me, if you can envision that, in my room where I'm recording right now. I have this whole bow drill set, and there's just so many nuances, to this program. I couldn't get into all of it now, but it's just designed to really break you down and have you really take the first introspective look for a lot of people. And it kind of was the first introspective look for me in my life. I'd gone to therapy before, but I'd gone to therapy when I was maybe 9 or 10 years old, from my parents. I didn't really have a choice in the matter, being that young of a minor, but I went, and I remember this doctor, Miss Lisa. She was in this, I think, in Englewood. Yeah, definitely in Englewood. And I would go in with her, and we would just play board games the whole time. And I would kind of avoid, kind of slyly, but benevolently avoid talking about anything serious with her. And I also think at that kind of age, there's only so deep that you can really get. I think a lot of things, conceptually, a lot of things are surface level, and I don't know how deep you can get into your emotions when you're 10 years old. But anyway, I won't get into too much of my rehabilitation stint, going out into wilderness and then traveling on there from Arizona and living in Arizona for the couple of years that I did, and then eventually coming back to New York. But my whole point in kind of explaining that whole progression was I've been through a lot of personal tribulations and been broken down a lot by the law, and been in and out of court, and been broken down with my parents, and had awful relationships with my friends, and had shallow relationships at that. And I've really been able to come to a point now where I can look at things in my life a lot closer and see when things are a little bit unbalanced. And I, in no way do I come from a moral hilltop, or do I come off like I'm perfect, like I'm this messiah, like I've gone to therapy and I was completely changed. It's none of that. And for the ones that do get it out there, to keep in the vein of anonymity, I even was a friend of Bill's for about 22 months, and that was a whole nother range of tools and experience and people and gifts that I was able to inquire while I was living out in Arizona. And Arizona is really quite a different place, although it can be a red state. I actually really upon reading more and upon looking more into history and into his history, I loved the I can't remember, and I don't want to get it wrong, but he was either the senator or the governor of Arizona, John McCain. I think he was the governor, and he just passed away recently. And I think just because, when I was younger, the first term when Obama ran and he was debating against McCain, I think it was so, McCain was so victimized because everybody wanted Obama to win. But McCain, was a prisoner of war in Vietnam, and he was brutally tortured for 4 years, and he did a lot of great things for the state of Arizona. And I really, what a remarkable